Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, we are going to take a trip into the supernatural, and I'm not necessarily talking about horror films, but similar, close enough. I am going to talk to Laurie Jacobson. Laurie Jacobson was a comedian who was also a waitress at the Comedy Store, the world-famous Comedy Store in West Hollywood, back in the early 80s, I guess it was. And she had supernatural encounters there, and it inspired her to become a writer of supernatural books and Hollywood scandals and what have you. And we are going to discuss it today. Because, as you all know, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I am just obsessed with the Comedy Store. I mean, it's a mythic, cosmic, entity of history in the history of comedy in Hollywood. And yeah, we're gonna be talking in just a moment. My conversation with Laurie Jacobson.
Hey there.
Hey, Laurie, how are you?
I'm good, Tommy. How are you?
Oh, I am just superb. Thank you so much. It's such an honor. You know, I saw you on so many E! True Hollywood Stories back in the day.
Yeah. Yes, I did quite a number of those.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was doing research, and I saw that you were part of Harvey Lembeck's comedy improv workshop.
Oh, yes. That's probably probably how I found my way to working at the Comedy Store.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because so many people in my class were doing stand-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it was a natural decision to work there.
And you had Robin Williams, John Ritter, and John Larroquette in the class?
Yeah. So I'm sorry to ask this. Are we going now, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I had no idea.
It happens.
All right, great. Well, then I'll stop giving you one-word answers.
Sorry, yeah, it happens sometimes. Sometimes I forget to tell them, and sometimes they stop and ask in the middle, or they get the idea right away and they just go.
I was getting the idea, but I just wanted to be sure. So yes, Harvey's class was just one of the best times of my life. Some comedy writer took me there one night on a date, and I never saw him again, but he opened the door to me sitting and watching for many, many weeks until finally I became part of the class.
Was Carol Eda White in the class?
She was not. To my knowledge, did she study with Harvey?
I don't know if she studied with Harvey, but she told me she was in a class with Robin Williams and John Ritter.
Oh, that must have been it then. I may not have known her then. I only became aware of her later because of her father's connection to my husband.
Oh, nice.
Do you know her dad was Jesse White?
Oh, yeah, from Harvey and many classic movies.
And many, many classic movies. And he made a movie with my husband. My husband was a child, and they became just the best pals. Mm-hmm. And John did appearances for Jesse at school functions and temple functions for Carol, and they just had this lovely relationship their whole lives. He just adored Jesse, and who didn't?
Yeah.
Such a doll, and so talented, and just love him.
Absolutely, yeah. So, what year did you start doing stand-up?
Stand-up. Ooh, let's see. I think I started with Harvey. I want to say in 76 or 77, and Comedy Store, I think in 81-ish. So probably, 82. I was foolish enough to attempt stand-up. And really, I started out great. And then the more I did it and the more notes I got, the worse I became.
Yeah.
And then I just left it because, pursuing acting was difficult enough. I didn't need another really difficult profession to begin in.
Yeah. What was your act?
I remember that my act was a lot about the Sex Pistols and punk, and finally being old enough to disapprove of a younger generation, and the Beatles and Yellow Submarine, and the younger generation thought the Yellow Submarine was something we used in Vietnam. I remember that joke. And that this gentleman, it was like people going, ah, yes, instead of laughing. And then this lovely man called out beautiful poetry, and people clapped, and I said, oh, mercy clapping. That was my first... That was my first attempt, and I had a lovely time. And then I was approached by people at the Comedy Store to keep coming. But really, the more notes they gave me, the worse I did. So yeah. I just went back to doing improv and your regular acting.
Mm-hmm. And I do a bit in my act where I talk about how classic rock bands in the 60s and 70s, they had better names, and all you had to do was say half of their name and you knew exactly who you were talking about. And bands of my generation have such pussy names. You have to say half the name and then the whole name so you know who you're talking about. I do that bit, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I'm a rock and roller, so that.
Me too, yeah. So what year did you get to the Comedy Store, and what year did you leave?
In terms of cocktail waitressing there?
Sure.
Or my cocktail waitressing career at the Comedy Store was virtually 1 year long, from October of 81 until October of 82, I think. Sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
When did John Belushi die? What year did John Belushi die?
March 5th, 1982.
Yes, because I was there. I was there when that happened, and that was, astounding.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'll just tell you what that was like. First of all, let me set the scene for working at the Comedy Store, because, I see television shows about stand-up comedy. I'm enjoying Crashing very much this season.
Yeah.
The one that Jim Carrey produces, I don't know. It seems a mixture of the period to me, of later years and that year. But, what the audience saw when they came in was a darkened room and, happy people going up on stage one after the other. But what was going on in the back of that dark room was a completely different world.
Yep.
There were obviously, people would be going up and hopeful, and Carson's scouts would be in the audience, and then Robin would drop in unannounced and bump three people.
Yeah.
Which the audience thought, how great is this? He wasn't even on the bill, and I'm getting to see Robin Williams. They thought it was great, but the three people who got bumped when Carson's scouts were in the audience, and Robin didn't need the time, there would be animosity growing in the back of the room, and that animosity would be relieved by 3 or 4 drinks or a lot of Coke or whatever was being passed around in the back.
Yeah.
And of course, this was before cell phones and all kinds of modern tech equipment. So if we got a credit card from somebody, we as waitresses would have to go to a payphone at the back of the room in the hallway and get an okay on the credit card. And often we would have to stand in line at the payphone with the hookers who had been brought in by customers from the Sunset Strip, and they were checking their customers, their John's credit cards at the payphone. So it was really, it was just surreal. So, people who sat down to see comedy had no idea this whole, underground life was taking place. And Bill Hicks was like this teenage boy sitting on a stool by the payphone, which was technically not in the club. So he got around the liquor law that way, and just soaking up everybody's routine and how they did it and when they did it and what word got the best laugh. And, he was just like everybody's little lucky penny.
Yeah.
It was, I absolutely loved it. And then Richard Belzer would brought John Belushi in one night. It happened to be about 2 nights before he died. And, of course, we're thrilled. John Belushi walks in, and he is just, looks atrocious. Well, he looked half dead. He really did. And then 2 days later, he was dead. And the club, it was like a bomb went off in the club. Because Belushi was the champion of all time. More drugs, more liquor, more cigarettes than anybody. So if those things got to Belushi, they could get to anybody. And Richard Pryor at that time was in the Comedy Store every night rehearsing live, what would become Live on the Sunset Strip. And here he is doing his routine about being burned up by his exploding crack pipe.
Yeah.
And he's already doing coke again. Yeah. And I remember Paul Mooney slamming Pryor up against the wall in the hallway when Pryor expressed shock at Belushi's death. And Mooney had him pinned to the wall saying, "Man, don't you know that's what they say about you? Don't you see that's what's going to happen to you?" And it was, and like I said, there's a little group of people applauding Arsenio Hall on stage doing his completely clean routine. And in the background, this unbelievable drama is occurring.
Yeah. Wow. Did you were you there when the strike happened?
No, that was before my time. But of course, I heard all about it.
Yeah. Steve Lubekin jumping off of the Hyatt Hotel.
Yes. And I do think, at least back when I was there, I did believe that Lubitkin's ghost was haunting the store. It's a very haunted building.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I've had a couple ominous experiences going there. The first time I went was 2 years ago. I went to LA for 8 days and trying to get stage time, and this was like 2 months shy before the Comedy Store podcast started. So I did not know that it was a new system there now. I thought Mitzi was still running the place, right? I didn't know she was sick. So I'm walking down with my friend. I'm walking down the ramp that Lubekin landed on, and I have a shudder just going down my spine because I know what happened there. And we get there, and I'm competing with 80 other guys trying to get on, and 15 got chosen and they got to go up, but I went inside to watch, and we get inside the original room. I'm sitting in the back, and I just look at those neon lights, in the original room, and I got this weird, ominous feeling while I was there that Kinnison, Pryor, Robin Williams, they were in the room watching the show with me and everybody else. Just a feeling.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised about Kinnison.
Yeah. And there were these, and I saw this. It looked like it was either smoke or some kind of apparition debris coming from those neon lights. Now, I did not feel creeped out or scared by this. I actually felt a sense of inner peace, and I felt like I belonged there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It was just this weird feeling, because the year before, I had a really bad car accident, and I spent 30 days in a coma. And my mother told me that when I woke up, I was saying all these things about being in comedy heaven with Robin Williams and Lucille Ball and all these people. And I don't remember it, of course, but I don't doubt it happened, though, because I am a spiritual person.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
pretty cool. That's a nice heaven to go to. That would be heaven for you, for sure.
Yeah. And then that Saturday night, we went back to the original room to see a show, and it was really hot and crammed in there because we got there late, and we were near where we were sitting before, but except with the table and two chairs, and it was just hot and sweaty in there, and nothing. I didn't really see anything that night. But then about 6 months ago, we went back, and we were like way behind this huge group of people going in, and we had a lot of time to look at the headshots on the wall on the way in. And something I did not realize the first time we went, those headshots are pretty spooky.
Oh, really?
Yeah, would you agree?
You mean the photos or the paintings?
The pictures of all the comics.
Why do you think they're spooky? I haven't seen them in years, but
you see the famous comedians when they were young, right?
Right.
Then you see all these comedians you never even heard of, and and they look pretty crazy, pretty like out of their minds, and you think, what happened to these guys? Who's dead? Who's alive? Why didn't they become successful? And I don't know, there's just something creepy about it. I can't really describe it other than that.
And also when I was there, I was really blessed to be there at a time when, it was really, comedy was just exploding and everybody was getting a sitcom. Letterman had just left when I got there, and he had just gotten his own show. So I saw him there a number of times as a customer, but I never saw him when I worked there. And Leno was doing the college circuit and was really very successful on the college circuit, and he was very well respected at the store. Right. And like one of the leaders, somebody Mitzi loved was Jimmy J.J. Walker.
Yeah.
We had rules that if Jimmy Walker or Richard Pryor, not in that order, wanted something. We were to drop whatever we were doing and give those guys exactly what they wanted in terms of drinks and service. There were strict rules about the comics and the waitresses interacting together.
Yeah.
However, if one of those important comics chose one of the waitresses to be his, Mitzi would not get in the way, but she definitely got in the way of the girls being with the comics because that was her territory.
Yeah.
That was her harem from which to draw. And when I was there, it was Argus.
Yeah, Argus Hamilton.
Yeah. And I do remember my first week, I was kind of wide-eyed, too. I mean, first of all, Richard Pryor, like I said, Richard Pryor was there every night, and the whole fucking world was coming in to see Richard Pryor. I mean, it was so goddamn exciting. You could not wait to get there to see whose name was on the list, whether it was Sugar Ray Leonard and Jimmy Connors to Bette Midler and
Chris Christopherson.
I don't remember him coming in, but I think my third night there, Mick Jagger and his full entourage walked in, and I mean, in the original room, people were standing on their chairs. The room is tiny. Mick Jagger comes in with like 12 people. Richard Pryor starts singing a Stones song. Robin Williams jumps on the stage. And people were standing on their chairs. The thrill in that room, would have lifted you off the ground. And, like I said, no cell phones, nothing. You had to be there. If you weren't there, it was only a story that you heard about, and that maybe 132 people were lucky enough to see. Every night was something like that. Peter O'Toole came in. That was my big one.
Yeah.
I was really jazzed to see him. But, it was so exciting. It was just so exciting. And I do remember Argus pulling me into the men's room in the original room saying that somebody had written something about me on the bathroom wall. And I went, oh, come on. So I went in to see. And then I turned around, and it was just Argus and me in there alone. And he was absolutely wild-eyed. I didn't realize why at the time, but later I came to recognize that look and veer away from it. But I think I looked so stupidly innocent that the lion let me out of the cage.
Yeah. So what years overall were you there?
I was there in the early 80s, and of course, it's the kind of place you never leave.
Yeah.
You go back and back and back, and you hang out with your friends, or and you go back to visit people, and I'm still really great friends with people that I knew there. And I'm a writer. I write books about Hollywood history. And so the ghost stories of the Comedy Store, I mean, shit happened to so many people when we were working there.
Yeah.
And I just began to collect these stories, and I started telling them, and the local news started contacting me every Halloween, and I would take them to the store, and I would tell this happened here and this happened here. We actually did an Unsolved Mysteries episode on it, so I was always going back to the store. It was very nice that as long as Mitzi was there, she would allow me to bring in camera crews, and we would talk about the crazy shit that happened there after everybody left. If you thought the shit was crazy when people were there, when people left, it was wild.
Yeah. Did you Like the one in Westwood?
My girlfriend, Freddie Lindsay, who I started out with as a waitress, became the manager of the Westwood store.
Ah.
And so, and then later she became an agent. So I would often leave the Sunset store and then go hang with her in Westwood. And I think I did stand up there a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where she put like all the guys who were just beginning for showcases over there.
Yes.
She put like Sam Kinison over there and like David Tyree and a couple people.
Well, Sam, yes, Sam would like beg for the 2:00 spot, the 1:45 spot at the Sunset store, and she barely gave him any time. And then one I think it was an afternoon. I believe Mitzi was leaving the club. At any point, Mitzi was leaving the club in her car, and she and Argus were having an argument, and Argus grabbed Mitzi around the throat. And the only reason I'm laughing is because I'm sure you've discussed that Mitzi had quite a unique way of speaking. And it was very nasal.
Yeah, very nasal. Yeah.
If you talk about Mitzi and you quote her, you have to say, it's like Trump. You have to say it the way he says it.
Yeah.
Or it's not funny. So we would have Mitzi offs in the store where all the waitresses would imitate her and who could get the closest. So Mitzi is being strangled. How? And the person who hears her is Sam Kinison.
Yeah.
Who I think clocked Argus and got him off of Mitzi. And after that, Sam was getting 10 o'clock Saturday night, and the surprise to everyone was that people loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And his freaking career absolutely took off. He became huge.
Oh yeah, once Rodney got him on his first Young Comedian special, that like just set him into orbit.
Yes, and a lot of at the time, a lot of Sam's stuff was drug-filled rants, and a lot of money went up Sam's nose, and but he helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
For example, Lenny Bruce's mother, who was a very dear friend of mine, was befriended by a ton of comics because of the ground that her son broke for them. And he gave her so much money just to thank her, and she needed the money. So, there was a very generous side to him. And the irony is that once he got his shit together and got clean and sober and got married and was happy, a drunk driver took him out.
Yeah. I can still remember that news report to this day. I was devastated because he was the first guy I saw that made me want to be a comedian when I was only 2 years old. That scream was hypnotic to me when I was 2.
That's so funny. All right, well, the ghosts at the Comedy Store, they absolutely hated that scream. And they hated his act. And to this day, Sam is the only comic I know who was heckled from beyond. So when he would take the stage, and mostly in the main room, in the large room, he would take the stage and the microphone would go out. Here it had worked for 20 comics before him, but he takes the stage and the sound goes out, or the lights go off, or, something would always happen. So he challenged them the ghosts when he was alone. And, ashtrays flew across the room and smashed on the wall. And moaning could be heard in the main room if he was on in the original room. Another comedian, Blake Clark, he was the security there at the time. He was always the last person to leave, so he saw more stuff than anybody. But he actually heard moaning in the main room. It sounded like a buzzing, zim, 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 and then it slowed down, and he could hear voices saying, "It's him, he's on." They were moaning. That Sam was on in the next room. They just hated his act. So it's kind of funny, the preacher turned comic.
Yeah, that's always been mind-boggling to me. So did you hang out there when he had all the porn stars and the drug dealers and the heavy metal guys there?
Oh, thank God I missed that.
Yeah, I've heard all those stories from Mark Maron on his podcast and everybody on the Comedy Store's podcast about just how insane that was. I mean, there was people getting shot and stabbed, and, there was fights and all that.
God, no, I didn't see any of that. I remember David Crosby and Stephen Stills coming in to do coke with the manager all the time. Mm-hmm. And wild parties there. Yeah. And as long as we're on the ghost story thing, Blake Clark would see things like, for example, he would walk into the main room and somebody had left the light on the stage. So he would have to cross the room, mm-hmm. climb up on the stage. Nobody's in the room. The room looks perfectly normal. He would walk up on the stage, hit the switch on the back of the wall, turn around, and 45 chairs were in a pile on the stage.
Wow.
Once he peeked in there and he just saw a stool going from one side of the stage to the other. He heard voices in the bathrooms after hours. Like in the ladies' room, he would hear girls talking about some heel two-timing me, like this weird 40s talk. Or he just would see people sitting in the room and where he would say, "I'm sorry, this room is closed, you're not allowed to be here," and they would just vaporize. There was a guy he saw a couple of times in a leather bomber jacket. The first time he saw him, Blake was playing Pac-Man. We had just gotten a Pac-Man machine at the store, and Blake was pretty darn good on it. And he was aware that somebody was watching him play, and when he got to a space in the game, he turned around, and it was this guy ghost in a leather bomber jacket. So he was later seen, that same guy was later seen crouching, fearful, in a corner of an office on the third floor. So we think, maybe his life ended there. Mm-hmm. People often saw men in wide lapel pinstripe suits going in and out of the offices on the second floor. Wow. And the scariest thing for Blake, one night he's in that back alley, that back hallway with the payphone where Bill Hicks hung out. Yeah. And there were steps leading down to the basement there. And it didn't have a door in front of it. It had one of those steel grates, like on a freight elevator. Yeah. So Blake is standing there with the bartender, Louie. Mm-hmm. And they hear this growling noise coming from the basement. and they look over, and the grate across the doorway is being stretched way out into the hallway, like they think it's going to break off the wall, and suddenly it snaps back and is, wobbling back and forth, and standing in front of these two men in the hallway is what Blake described as a 7-foot, blacker than black shadow of a man, just a vague outline of shoulders and head, and it is making this horrible growling noise, and it is coming toward them. And so, of course, they set a new land speed record running out of there. Now, from that moment on, Blake told Mitzi, I'm never going to the basement. So one day, Mitzi says, I need you to go to the basement. Take your friends. She knew Blake was afraid, so yes, he grabs two friends. They go down to the basement. They all know what happened to Blake down there. So they go down to the basement, and out of nowhere, one of Blake's friends holds his hands up and starts yelling, no, stay away. And Blake doesn't see anything, okay? But he doesn't need to see anything because he's already seen it. The guy holding his hands up is seeing a black smoke start to emanate from a corner and form a being. He is holding his hands out in front of him, and Blake grabs his friend's hands to run, and he said his friend's hands were burning hot, like he was holding them on a stove, and yet all three men could see their breath in the room. And they're running now up the stairs to get out of there, and this piece of cardboard falls out of nowhere, hits Blake on the hands, and it has his name written on it.
Wow.
Blake Clark. And that, to me, that was the most terrifying story I heard there. I mean, Blake got tapped on the shoulder and saw people and saw things moving, but this thing knew his name.
Yeah, I know that story about him getting tapped on the shoulder, and like he ran down Sunset, and he turned around, and that ghost was still there. Yeah.
Once his wife was picking him up in the back, and he's walking toward the car, and he sees this look of horror on her face, and he turns around, and there's a ghost at the edge of the building peeking around him, like as if to be able to tell the others, okay, he's gone now.
Oh, my God.
So it's really a fountain of paranormal activity over there. And I do think we did bring a psychic in there when I worked there, because there was just so much going on. And he went down to the basement and immediately collapsed from terrible pain in his legs. And I think that, somebody was, listen, the mob was when a club is, that was the most popular club in Hollywood in the 40s and 50s.
Yep.
And when a club is that popular, the mob wants a piece of it. And if you disagree, I guess you get taken down to the basement and have your legs broken.
Yep. Yeah. Oh my God. Did you ever work Monday nights during potluck when the crazy people would come in?
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yes.
Yeah, I know the mythology of those guys. That guy, he's still there today, Bob Abervaya.
I don't believe I knew him.
Yeah, he's been there since like '76.
Oh really?
He closes every potluck night. He just goes up there, does the same, like 5 minutes, wears the same suit, and he's schizophrenic.
Gee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's
I wasn't there too much on a Monday night.
Mm-hmm. And there was another guy, Gaylord Dingler, who was there for many years too, and he went missing, and there was a rumor that somebody killed him, but then he resurfaced. He moved to Florida, and some people who didn't like him, who thought that he was crazy, which he is, they found out through the Comedy Store podcast that he used to perform there on potluck night, and they said, no, he's here in Florida, he's not dead.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, is it Florida where people go to die? So it must be imminent.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh my God. So, yeah, I listened to the Comedy Store podcast and all these other comedy podcasts, and they talk about all these like comedians that a lot of them I already knew who they were because I saw them on like an evening at the Improv and stuff. The comedians who didn't like really make it and stuff. Let me go down a list here and tell me if you remember these guys.
Okay.
Vic Dunlop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was a funny guy.
Yes, of course I remember him.
He had those crazy eyes. He looked like Billy Sullivan.
Yeah, he was great.
Johnny Dark.
Yes. Oh God, yes. Oh, this is fun. I haven't thought of these guys in a while. Johnny Dark, sure.
One of my favorites, Tim Thomerson.
Oh yes.
He was a genius. He should have stuck with comedy. He was a genius.
Yeah, I think he was one of Letterman's cronies.
Yep. I used to see him on Letterman a lot back in the day.
Yeah, Letterman, and that was the thing about Letterman. He never forgot his friends. He always had them on. Mm-hmm. Who was the guy that he always... I'll think of it.
George Miller.
George Miller. And God bless George Miller. He had some issues.
Yeah.
And he was a troubled person. And even when he was a troubled person and not that funny anymore, Dave always had him on.
Yeah.
Gotta give Dave credit for that.
Yeah, Letterman always had like his friends on and stuff. Then there was a lot of comedians who were younger than him that started around the time he was leaving, and for some reason they never got on his show, and they were really bitter about it and stuff. Like Andrew Dice Clay was bitter about it.
Oh, Dice. He got bitter. He used to be bitter. He was actually a lot of fun to hang out with.
That's what I heard, yeah. He was a hero of mine, too, growing up. Were you there when he was doing the Jerry Lewis and Travolta bit?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was just starting. He was just starting, and and Dice was merely a character that he played for part of his act. It wasn't even his whole act.
Yeah. A lot of people don't even know that, too.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, he was like a regular guy, He was just, he was fun. One of my friends was, he was dating Mitzi's daughter, but wait a minute, now let me get this straight. I thought he dated Mitzi's daughter for a while. Then he had this really cute little blonde girlfriend, baby doll. We all called her something. And but my girlfriend who was a waitress with me was having an affair with him, and he was living in the house, the comics house that the two guys live in.
Yeah, the Crest Hill house.
Yes, and she would have to climb out the window, and make her escape because women weren't allowed, right? Women, and particularly waitresses, were not allowed to spend time up there. But we often went to Ben Frank's together with him, and he was great. I liked him.
Yeah, it's hard not to like him. Ollie Joe Prater.
Oh, sure, Ollie Joe. God, yeah, these are my years.
Mm-hmm. Freddie Asparagus.
Yes, Freddie Asparagus. Everybody loves Freddie Asparagus.
Yeah, I remember he was in Three Amigos. He played the bartender.
Yeah, it was just a small town then, you know. People really took your recommendations to heart, and you could get your friends' parts.
Yep, it's so hard now. I'm trying to get into the movies and stuff. It's really difficult.
Oh, yeah, it is. You know, when I was in Harvey's, Harvey grew up in Brooklyn with Gary Marshall.
Yeah.
And Phil Foster. So Gary Marshall says to Harvey, I hear you got a pretty good little workshop going over there. And Harvey says, yeah, you ought to stop by sometime. So he stops by, he sees Robin Williams, and goes, holy shit, we got to get this guy on Happy Days, you know. And from then on, Gary sat in Harvey's class and handpicked people for guest starring parts. Scott Baio couldn't act his way out of a paper bag. He throws Scott Baio into class to get some comedy education. You know, and it became a real testing ground, which is why even when Ritter and Robin and La Roquette, well, not so much La Roquette, but even when Robin and Ritter were already well established starring in their TV series, they always came back to Harvey's to experiment. That's the place you could make mistakes. You couldn't make mistakes on camera.
Of course not.
You know, so if you wanted to experiment, that was, you know, that was your place to do it. So, you know, so those guys kept coming back, which was great because it just raised the stakes for everybody. You know, they were working, they were growing by being professionally employed, and we grew because of that. Mm-hmm. You know, so it was really, it truly was a workshop, and it truly was great. Yeah. But then Harvey died suddenly at the age of 57.
Yeah.
And that whole world sadly fell apart. We all had to go our own ways. But man, it was something while it was together.
His son Michael became a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was working a lot and became a very successful director.
Mm-hmm. He directed a lot of TV, I remember.
Yeah.
Was Tom Sharp there?
That's a name I remember, but I do not know him.
Yeah, he's a bald guy. He looks like an insurance salesman, always wears a suit, and he even talks like an insurance salesman. He's really deadpan, and he did like a lot of commercials back in the 80s and 90s. He's a funny guy.
Yes, I think I know his work, but I don't think he was there then. I don't recall anyone in a suit.
Really?
Truly.
Not even Jay Leno?
No, sweaters. He was a sweater guy.
He always wore a suit whenever he was on Letterman.
Ah, well.
Was
television. No, he was jeans and a sweater or a pinstripe shirt. You know, very sort of collegiate looking.
Yeah, I heard he was actually. Now that I think of it, I heard he was always trying to get guys that were outside of the box to wear sweaters on stage. Like he tried to get Bobcat Goldthwait to do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's no wonder Bobcat set his desk on fire on The Tonight Show.
Yeah. I think it was the couch. He set the couch on fire.
Yeah, couch. I thought it was the table of couch.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah. I saw his headshot on the wall. Oh, my God. He had like, his hair was long, but it was short compared to what it became. And his headshot was pretty spooky. Bobcat's.
Yeah. Well, he is kind of spooky just in his everyday awakening mode.
Well, he's a hero of mine, too. Him, Kinnison, and Dice, those three were like my guys growing up because they were rock and roll comedians, you know, really edgy stuff.
Yes.
And that's what I was attracted to. I mean, I do like the clean stuff. I love Seinfeld and Wendy Liebman and Stephen Wright, but those guys were my guys growing up.
yeah, they changed a lot about comedy, and Sam certainly brought it into other worlds.
Yes, he certainly did.
I was sorry Dice's show got canceled recently because
it did?
it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear. Oh, that disappoints me. I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was funny. I mean, I actually was laughing.
Yeah.
It's hard to. I'm a very tough audience, just because I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually thought it was a funny show. But anyway, yeah, he's got to look for. He's got a little bit more to be bitter about now.
Yeah. Was Greg Hilbers there?
That's a name I do not know.
He was like Mitzi's repairman, and he did like repairs there.
Oh no.
Oh,
No, but that was one of her MOs. She was always getting people to do stuff around the store for free, with the lure of this will get you better spots if you do this for me.
Mm-hmm.
She was great at getting guys to give up their time and their energy to benefit her in some way.
Yeah. Oh, his headshot is super creepy. He's got like an acorn haircut and a camouflage mustache. It's really creepy.
Also, when I was there, Larry Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was fabulous. Michael Keaton.
Yeah, Michael Keaton did stand up. Yeah.
Michael Keaton, Gary Shandling was just starting, hanging out in the back. He didn't know how to hang out with other people. He would just sit alone in a smoky corner and, wait for people to come over to him. Keaton also didn't hang out. Howie Mandel was married. He did not hang out. He would come in, do his thing, and leave. And then he got sent elsewhere, and he just,
Yeah.
he just took off. Arsenio was just starting.
Mm-hmm.
And, sorry.
It's okay.
Arsenio was just starting. Of course, Jerry Seinfeld.
Was Lou Deck there?
No.
Oh, he probably left by then. He just wrote a book about his Comedy Store days in the 70s.
Carrie Snow.
Yep.
I think Rita Rudner. Roseanne was just coming in. I remember Carrie Snow was doing a set in the room upstairs, the belly room.
Yeah.
And she had a one-woman show she was doing, and they were bringing in some comic from San Francisco to open for her. And she said, "Can you believe it? It's a black chick named Whoopi Goldberg." Like, we were like, "Oh, such a gimmicky name." Oh, she must be terrible. Yeah. So much for us. Sandra Bernhard.
Yeah.
On the women's side, Lois Bromfield.
Yeah.
There weren't a ton of women, but there was a good handful like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was so great. It was such a great time because the lineup now, when I think of it, I would say 8 out of 10 people at that time went on to have their own series or be, known in some way or working regularly.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever see any sex happening in the back?
I heard about it happening. I know. I have a friend who had sex with Mike Binder on the steps leading up to the belly room. But I never personally saw any sex happening. Why? You got a good story?
The only story I've heard that, well, I've heard a couple, but more about more recent comedians. But from that time, I heard a story about Roseanne Barr giving Sam Kinison the blowjob in the kitchen or something.
Ooh. Wow, in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's heavy. That's the room everyone has to walk through to get anywhere. So,
Yeah.
not exactly a private moment.
Yeah. That's the only old one I heard. Did you ever hang out with Mitzi socially?
No. No, it was just too dangerous. Because if you got comfortable with her and said something in front of her, she could use it later to fire you.
Wow.
So I really tried not to gain her attention in any way. And I must say that, she was usually pretty fucked up. She had a thing for like Valium and champagne. That was her thing. Mm-hmm. And she probably smoked pot too. And she probably did the occasional snort. I didn't see that. I always heard her thing was Valium and champagne. And she would come down the stairs and stop in front of the portraits of the painted black and white portraits of comics. And she would talk to them kind of the way at the end of his reign Nixon was talking to the portraits of the presidents in the White House. She would go through the Comedy Store very fucked up and talk to the portraits of the comics who had come and gone and talk to them as if, they were there standing in front of her, and we'd be, 10 feet back. Now, I wasn't going to go hang out with that, no.
The comedian Bobby Lee, he said about 20 years ago he went over to her house and he nearly threw up because she had long toenails and stinky feet.
Well, in her defense, I will say that she has been ill for quite some time, and so that undoubtedly she was already ill if he saw that, but
or getting there at least.
And listen, we all had, it was the 80s, and Coke was everywhere. It was just everywhere. I mean, the coffee shops that have sprung up, sprang up because of the intense drug and alcohol addictions of the 80s. When people could no longer meet their friends in a bar and they had to find someplace else to meet, suddenly there were coffee shops, and it was safe territory. But it was really Belushi's death that changed everything. Because comics did come and go, but, he was huge, and like I said, he could consume more drugs and alcohol than anybody, and it got him. So Robin Williams took a big step back, and and when you see that happening with the major players, hell, it even caused Richard Pryor to take a step back. So that you have probably Belushi's death to thank for Starbucks and all of its incarnations.
Yeah, the launch of this little-known coffee shop in Seattle that became a corporate multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah, really, really incredible.
Shit. Oh, did you know Todd Lemish?
No.
Oh, I've heard so many stories about this guy. He was a Monday night MC who did illusions, and they said that by the 2000s he had done so much coke, something broke in his brain, and everywhere he went he saw Sam's ghost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he used to do coke with Sam at the Crest Hill house because he lived there.
Yeah. God, yeah, that Coke was everywhere. So we'd be, we would put in an 8-hour night waitressing. We would get there at 7 o'clock. We would not get out of there till 2:30, maybe 3 if some comic wouldn't get off stage. Paul Mooney, but I'm not saying any names. And that's a long night. Then we would go out for something to eat. So you've worked your butt off and walked your feet off, and you come away with some crap tips. And there's always a desperate comic in the background trying to bum $5-10 off you, which you'll never see again because it's going straight up his nose. There was always, it was so much fun. And as a comic, I learned so much watching the same people do their routines night after night, and Wyatt got a laugh Tuesday night but didn't get a laugh Wednesday night. But maybe just because the inflection of just one word was different. So I loved it. It was really an education. But there was this circle of desperation around all of it, with just this seedy element.
Of course.
Of drug sellers, people hooked on it, bitter people where drugs and alcohol made them more bitter, envy, rage, and in the core of it was this, pure laughter. Listen, I really was, as a writer, I'm just so happy that I had this incredible experience.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, was there for the same goal, same reason, to become hugely successful. But, the drugs, prevented that for some guys, and some guys it didn't.
Yes. Yeah, I was just watching, after the Oscars the other night, I watched Alec Baldwin has a new show.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and he interviewed 2 great comedians for a half an hour each, Jerry Seinfeld and Kate McKinnon.
Oh, yeah, Kate McKinnon,
and
she's funny.
Jerry said, I have never seen cocaine. He said, literally, I have never seen it.
Yeah.
And Alex said, it's not in your makeup. You weren't in those rooms. He didn't seek out those people. And Leno was like that also. He has other issues, but, I clearly remember people smoking joints around him, and he was just oblivious. Nobody even offered it to him. It was okay with him, but, he was just not a partaker, and you could just see that about him.
Yeah.
So some people are charmed that way, and that they're not drawn into that, and some people experiment, and then others succumb.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, when I started doing comedy in San Francisco in 2006, everybody was just smoking pot all around me. I didn't do it, but everybody was smoking pot.
I remember also Gilbert Gottfried was there when I was there.
Gilbert Gottfried was there?
Yeah, and he was such a, he was funny.
Yeah.
We all thought he was funny, but then he would be real pathetic with the waitresses afterward.
Oh.
Because he could never get laid. I don't care how funny he was. That guy was not going out in the audience afterward and picking up chicks. So, come 1:45, he'd come moaning over to the waitresses, hoping one of us would take pity on him and take him home. No. And then suddenly, bingo, he hits it, and he's an instant hit, and he became such a dick.
Yeah.
Such an asshole. Unbelievable asshole right from the start. So, he's out there, but, then there were people like Larry Miller who hit it. He works all the time. Oh, God, I loved his stuff. And you may not know his name, but when you see him, Pretty Woman and, Law and Order, and, he works all the time. Just a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
Can't say enough about him. But, yeah, it was a magical time. I really loved it.
That's so awesome. I love that place. When I move out to LA next year, I hope I get connected with it somehow. It's a lot harder now to get in there now that Peter Shore is running the place, but I hope something good will come of it when I get there.
Yeah, it was, and I hope that for you as well.
Oh.
The Comedy Store, it came to be because it was time for comedy. And there were really only two places in Los Angeles that comedy was happening. You could go out to the Ice House in Pasadena, but that was a schlep. In town, people wanted comedy. They went to the store or the Improv. And, the Comedy Store was just a comfortable little place for Sammy Shore, Mitzi's husband, to hang out with friends and comment on each other's routines. And if people wandered in off the strip, great. And when they divorced, Mitzi asked for the club. And she knew accounting. She could run a club, and she did. And there was a need for it, and it grew despite the mistakes she made and the terrible investments she made, and where she lost tons of money, but it didn't matter because the club was so big, there was tons more money coming in. So despite her errors in judgment and investments, the club thrived because it was the time for comedy to thrive. And look at the stars that came out of that time that we have talked about.
Yep.
Just an amazing group. So it could never happen this way again. This is truly a story of a person being in the right place at the right time, in the right building, and magic happened.
It surely did. It happened with a vengeance.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you about it. It's brought back a lot of smiles to my face.
Absolutely. Do you have any books you're working on right now?
Well, and off the subject of comedy, I am working on a book about the Beatles at Shea Stadium,
Nice.
1965.
Nice.
An amazing concert that changed rock and roll history forever. First concert ever in a baseball stadium, and the number of people that were there that night that went on to fame and fortune, that were just little teenagers, carrying Meryl Streep with her sign, "I love you, Paul," hoping that he would see it, and Whoopi Goldberg and Steve Van Zandt and all kinds of. I've got wonderful, wonderful stories of this one moment in time. I kind of love those one moment in time things. So yeah, I'm working on that, and I'm working on a couple of other projects, and it's a good time.
Yeah, I saw that you were on Creature Features not too long ago.
Oh yes, Yes, well, my most popular book of the several that I've written, my most popular book, far and away, is a book called Hollywood Haunted, which, of course, is a big fat chapter on the Comedy Store in there. And after being in print for 21 years, it is now available only as an ebook on Amazon. And so that book made me a prime candidate to be on Creature Features.
Yeah.
And one of the producers of Creature Features is a documentary filmmaker, and he has made two movies about ghosts here in Northern California. The most recent one is Haunted Wine Country, and the other, I believe, is Haunted Sonoma County. So I host both of those, get to go into some haunted places up here. And, you just learn the history of who was there.
Mm-hmm.
Who was there and why they're still haunting the place.
Yeah, Coffee started doing Creature Features like right around the time I left San Francisco last year, and so I watch it on YouTube because I can't watch it over here in Redding. I actually had a talk with a TV producer about having my own late night horror movie show, and he said, I'm funny, I have talent, I have great knowledge for horror movies, but not enough social media followers, because everything now is about social media.
Yes, that's the way it is these days in everything. They expect
comedy.
you to build it and bring it to them. In the old days of the studio system and things like that, they would discover a diamond in the rough, and spend money polishing that diamond.
Yep.
And that doesn't happen. You'd pitch an idea and people would buy the idea and help you develop it. And now you got to bring a finished script and a sizzle reel.
Yeah.
And a producer to the project before they'll even look at you. So, yeah, it's and then they get the big bucks.
Of course. I think social media has enabled the studio system and everywhere to be lazy and more greedy.
Yeah, I can't believe that Andy Warhol was right, but he was right. Everybody is going to have their 15 minutes.
Yep. I just hope I have mine pretty soon. But
I hope so too, Tommy.
Thank you so much.
I'll be rooting for you.
Thank you so much, Laurie. We should connect on Facebook so you can keep up to date with my career and stuff.
I would love to do that. I will friend you right away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laurie, for taking the time today.
I loved it.
Me too.
Let's walk down memory lane together again soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have yourself a great day.
Thanks, Tommy.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. Laurie Jacobson. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Laurie. I appreciate you taking the time and telling me all those crazy Comedy Store stories, and I hope you enjoyed mine as well. If you like this video, everybody, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter, add me as a friend on Facebook, and join my Tommy Kovac comedian page. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Everybody, if you're in LA, go to the Comedy Store. See it for yourself. Later, dudes.